Hey everyone, it is Monday morning, meaning it is time for Motivational Monday. I'm Christopher Donnell, one of the pastors here at Urbana UMC, and this is my friend Tony Hoyt. And we're going to talk about a tough topic that is kind of in the forefront of all of our minds and in our news sources, and that is the conflict that's happening in Ukraine. Even as we speak right now, this has been going on for 3 weeks. Well,
yeah,
it's been going on for a lot longer than that, but
currently just over a month now, I think. Yeah.
So I'm sure you've heard lots of different things about happening in Ukraine, but Tony has a unique perspective. Tony actually spent some time there, but before we get into that, Tony, you're from the area, and you're a Champaign-ian, County-ian, is that right?
Yes. Champaign-ian, I don't know how you call it, but born and raised. So I went to Graham and graduated in '99.
Awesome.
And yeah.
Awesome. And your recent transplant, because you did Peace Corps, which we'll get into, but then you were in Chicago, but now
I
you're
was in
back.
Chicago for 10 years, and now I'm back. So.
Awesome. So Tony was so gracious to sit down and talk to us today. Your love for Ukraine and your knowledge of Ukraine, how did that all start? And tell us a little bit about your journey there.
Absolutely. So shortly after I finished college, and I was actually working here in Urbana at the time, I had decided it was time for me to really pursue a dream of mine, which was to serve as a Peace Corps volunteer.
Awesome.
So I decided to start going through that process, which took a good bit of time. And essentially through that process, then you don't really get to choose where you go. It's more so you were paired up with a country depending on what they were needing and what skills you had to offer.
Okay.
So through that process, I essentially was invited to serve in Ukraine.
Right.
And so I served in Ukraine from 2009 until 2011.
All right. It's a good bit of time.
It is a good bit of time.
Yeah. Especially when you were raised in Champaign County, probably a little different than
a little bit, yeah.
life around here.
A little bit in the sense, yes and no, yeah.
Yeah. People are always people, right? But
yeah, exactly.
Just a different way of doing it. Mm-hmm. 2 years. So what did that look like, and what did you do to get involved, and how are your skills used there?
Absolutely. So for people who maybe aren't aware of what Peace Corps is, it's an organization that really has 3 goals. The first is to really offer assistance to countries who want help in terms of providing training and setting up skills for people, men and women in their countries.
Okay.
The second goal is to really promote a better understanding of Americans and American culture to people of other countries. And the third part is to really provide a better understanding of other cultures and countries to Americans.
Yep.
So
Two-way street there.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
So how did you grow your love for Ukraine? What were some of the things that you saw there that because we've talked before, and you're passionate about Ukraine, and especially what's happening now. But what were some of the things that allowed you to fall in love with the Ukrainian people and the country there?
Yeah, I think in terms of the country, it's a beautiful landscape. It has a little bit of everything. I mean, in terms of geography.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go certain areas and just see fields and fields of sunflowers as far as the eye can see. And then you also have the mountains and the sea and everything. So it's a beautiful topography. And the people, like over 2 years, you naturally just get to really become part of a community. So for Peace Corps, you spend your first 2 or 3 months in training. And that really covers like your language training. It covers through technical training for what you'll be doing once you get to your site. It covers cultural training, health and safety issues, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then after you complete training, you are sent to a site where you spend approximately about 2 years doing whatever work assignment that you do.
Perfect.
For me, my work assignment, I was part of the community development sector.
Okay.
So essentially, I was the goal of the community development sector was to work with organizations in the community to help them improve project design and management skills, help them find funding for organizations, and identify ways that organizations could become more sustainable in terms of surviving.
Yeah. Which kind of leads to, and we can segue here, surviving.
Yes.
You went to help develop parts of this country that are now being undeveloped quite rapidly and significantly in some places. Let's do a quick snapshot a brief snapshot of how did we end up in this situation with Ukraine being invaded? Why is it important for us as Americans to know these things? Again, we all get our news from somewhere. I think it's interesting that you have a different perspective, and not saying you are the source of all facts, but you have your perspective and what you've experienced, and that is true. And so I appreciate you sharing that. So what should we know about this history of Russia-Ukraine? What would you say are some highlights that are important for us to have conversations about?
Yeah, I think sadly it is a very involved history. There are a lot of parts. The current invasion isn't something that just kind of came from nothing, unfortunately. So the history really stems back to the Soviet Union times.
Yep.
So because of Ukraine as a country, because of the natural resources that the country has, also in terms of agriculture.
Yeah, explain a little bit about that.
So the farmland in Ukraine is some of the most fertile farmland in Europe.
Wow.
With it being that fertile, they have the opportunity to really, maximize the production of crops.
Yeah.
And so during Soviet Union times, the Soviet Union was relying on Ukraine to essentially grow the crops to, supply to all of the Soviet Union, not just the people in Ukraine.
Wow.
And so, but during this time, this stems back to the 30s. Sadly, the Soviet Union they were taking the crops that the Ukrainians were growing, feeding the rest of the Soviet Union, and then the Ukrainians were starving.
Oh, wow.
And sadly, during a period in the 1930s, I think from 31 to 33, there was an event that they call the Holodomor. Essentially, it was a point where reportedly 6 million Ukrainians died of starvation because of this practice and this method, sadly. And then unreported as many as up to 12 million. So about a quarter of the population starved to death through this. And sadly, it's not something that you really hear about or read in the history books currently. So stemming back to issues like that, and then also during the Soviet Union times, when so many people were dying of starvation, the Soviet Union essentially moved ethnic Russian people into parts of Ukraine. And so when Ukraine essentially gained their independence, you had a mixture population of people who were ethnically Ukrainian and some people who were ethnically Russian, which essentially has led to a bit of disagreement within the country as to where the country should fall.
Sure.
And geographically, looking at the country, it's really on the border of the European Union and Russia, and so having two superpowers like that, being sandwiched right in between and being pulled one way or another, just really has a big effect, on the country. So
I think it's a great visual of what's happening with Ukraine. This tug of war, essentially, the East and the West, right? I mean, that's essentially what's happening.
Yeah,
that's good. Any other key facts you think about this whole situation that's helpful?
Yeah, the other key factor, the more recent thing is actually is something that happened when I was still in the country. Okay. So there was a presidential election in 2011. The person who won, Viktor Yanukovych at the time, he took office then. As soon as he took office, he imprisoned his opponent and her cabinet.
Oh, wow.
And he was the person who, in 2014, there was a massive protest in the Capitol where sadly a couple hundred people, protesters, were killed.
Oh, wow.
To essentially push for a re-election and get him out of office. And
Right.
in 2014, that's when he fled the country and fled to, was exiled to Russia.
Sure. So he was very pro-Russian.
He was very pro-Russian. Yeah, he was, very much in favor of Putin, and so when he fled, that was the moment when Russia first invaded and took over Crimea and the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine.
Yeah.
And really, ever since then, that currently that's where the real struggle has been. It really goes back to 2014. It's not something that just happened a month ago.
Yeah. So it's kind of just been an evolution of that first invasion and land grab.
Yes.
Back to Russian side. So yeah, that is helpful because it's very complicated.
Complicated, yeah.
There are people on both sides who, as Christians, we're called to take care of people, so we have to value life on both sides, and it's very heartbreaking to see anybody, loss of life on either side. It's not like a football match where you get to root
Yeah.
for somebody to win, because there's
Not
always
quite like
loss.
that, no.
There's always a loss.
Yeah.
On both sides, and it's war is never good or fun or cut and dry, or there's always collateral damage and
True.
all
Yeah.
those things. So what's happening right now? We talked. You have the East and the West pulling against this. So what's happening to the people of Ukraine? Again, why should we care so deeply about what's happening? How does this affect us? Even us sitting here in Urbana, Ohio, right now, how does this have implications on us?
That's a really good question, and while I don't know if it really have I can't say it would really have
Sure.
a direct effect on people here. They may not. I'm sure they probably don't have a direct tie
Right.
to Ukraine as a country. The people there that I do.
Right.
And understandably so. But I think this is important because from a political sense, if Russia were successful in their goal here, I don't believe it would stop just with that.
Right.
So, I think it would continue to move further west, or try to at least. So I think politically, it's a really important issue because it won't stop with just this. Mm-hmm. But looking at it from a broader sense as to why people should care, even if you don't know anybody directly from that area, it's really the fact of just being a human being. Mm-hmm. So, naturally, we shouldn't want to, see other people harmed.
Right.
Nobody would deserve that.
Right.
We really all should be just, very mindful and want to support the well-being of all human beings, regardless of who they are, regardless of if you know them or not, you know. In the sense, the best thing I could maybe suggest is, trying to put yourself into their shoes. Like, if you were that person there and you're forced to flee your house for for your own safety, and go somewhere completely foreign to you. How would you feel, and what would you hope would happen if you were in that case? I know it might be a little difficult for people here to do because the chances of that are a lot less. A lot fewer happening, but I think it can help maybe to shed a little bit of understanding or perspective as to maybe why people should care a bit more about it.
And the reality is, it didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to end overnight. There will be a residual effect. We've seen. Hopefully, you've seen. Even the pictures and video footage of Polish mothers leaving strollers at the train station for Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's this exile happening, which will only be a ripple effect to all those European countries, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, it may not directly affect us now, but I mean, our allies and those who we work with closely are being affected. Their
Absolutely.
systems are becoming overwhelmed. I mean,
Yep.
how many? Do you have a number about how many refugees or any idea of?
I think the last I'd heard, there were maybe 4.5 million
I was gonna guess 4,
refugees
yeah.
that have fled Ukraine, and when you look at where they're going, I mean, they're right now that most of them have gone to Poland, Slovakia, Romania, and Moldova, because those are the countries that border, and Hungary. Those are the countries that border on the western part of Ukraine.
Okay.
So they are the ones that are feeling the full effect of this right now, because everybody is going into there.
Right.
Now, each country naturally is going to have a limit to really how many people, like how many refugees they can sustainably
Right.
support. And so essentially other countries need to step up and offer support and harboring, those other refugees as well, to relieve some of the pressure from those countries.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that some, more with like countries like Germany and Norway and other countries that
Right.
are offering to, take in people. And now the U.S., thank goodness,
Yeah,
has
is able.
offered to take some.
Yeah.
So
That's good. Yeah, and I just think that's, I guess what I've been thinking about the most is just what's to come next. We kind of talked, you even said you did community development, how many years it takes to develop a community. Well, now they're being torn down, and how long is it going to take to rebuild? And
yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. So in terms of like working as a Peace Corps volunteer, a lot of our work was grassroots. So you're working with local organizations, you're getting your hands dirty, and in that regard, change. You don't go in as a Peace Corps volunteer thinking you're going to change the country in a
Right.
matter of 2 years.
Right.
That's just, it's not realistic and it's not sustainable.
Right.
So really, to help encourage change that would last, it does take a long time to really make that happen. So when you look at in the sense then of rebuilding a community, I can't even imagine how much time it would take. I mean, in the sense of just like the infrastructure,
Right.
building that. I mean, in terms of the resources, the manpower, the finances to really fund that. And it's not in one sense of just rebuilding one community. It's essentially rebuilding how the countless communities that have been essentially just destroyed
Right.
in the past month or so, and so it's really going to take like a long time. This isn't something that will just essentially
Right.
things will be back to normal in a year or two. The effects of this are extremely long.
Yeah, because again, for me, I notice, especially as an American, things can become out of sight, out of mind, and we forget to care for the least of these or people who are going through it, just because they're not happening in front of us. And then, with our constant source of our news and our flood of information, there's always something happening around the world to demand our attention or demand our charity or demand our support, right?
Yeah.
But this is something, to your point, that where we will be easily talking about this in 5 more years, maybe even 10, about how these people are going to rebuild. So it's 2022, 2032. There's still going to be issues.
Yeah, definitely.
there.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because it's a long-term goal. I mean, it's not just something that we can do overnight or, man, this is important right now, so let's fix it right now. No, we gotta, if you have a heart for this, get involved, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So
Now's the time to do
it. So with that being said, what are some practical things that we can do to get involved? We have, at our church, we have UNCOR, United Methodist Committee on Relief, because there are Methodist churches in Ukraine who we have direct connection to. But you had some other ones that are very practical. Go ahead and share those with us.
Absolutely. And I do want to take just a quick moment to go back to a question you had asked
Yeah.
before about people who might not have, who don't think they really have direct ties to, people in Ukraine.
Yep.
And while directly you might not think you do, looking at it from different perspectives, like from a religious perspective, like you mentioned, the Methodist Church does have a presence in Ukraine. So looking at the broader sense of like the religious community,
Yes.
Methodist community, you do have ties to that. People that share your beliefs and are part of that community. Addition to that, also, I mean, the United States is a melting pot. I mean, that's how the country was created, and so everybody's got some different mix of background, and so people you may not know anybody who's directly who's maybe a Ukrainian per se, but I'm sure people know somebody else who might have a direct tie.
Couple
and
points
sorts
of
of
contact.
somebody through like a some kind of family history. So and just being aware of that that and showing that your support for Ukraine overall can help those people maybe
Yes.
to like feel a little more at ease, or knowing that they have your support.
Yeah.
So in terms of, so going back to your current question, sorry. So
No, that's
looking
good.
at like things that there are different things that all of us can do to really help show support for the people in Ukraine currently. So, and it really depends on, in terms of like what areas people might feel more comfortable in providing support. So the first one I would say would be actual direct financial support. So there are multiple organizations right now who are contributing, providing humanitarian aid and relief to Ukraine. So in terms of those organizations, like one of the larger Ukrainian nonprofits that's providing humanitarian aid is an organization called Razom. There's another organization that's called Save Life, and they provide more direct support to the Ukrainian military to continue doing what they need to do to fight the good fight. So depending on maybe where, if you feel comfortable donating money and to what cause you feel comfortable donating money, if those aren't good options, then another good option would be for the World Kitchen, which has currently, I knew it was set up on the border of Poland and Ukraine to provide meals to refugees who are coming into the country. So maybe doing something like that is a better, better match for what you feel comfortable supporting. And then also from the financial perspective, depending on where you're located, I know for Urbana it's a little more difficult, but supporting any locally Ukrainian-owned businesses or companies, I'm fortunately not aware of any in the area. So if anybody is, please reach out, because I would love to know that. But yeah, showing any support for those companies, because any locally owned Ukrainian business definitely has direct ties to family in Ukraine. And I can guarantee you that they are already, before this happened, they are already providing monetary support for their family and friends. So supporting their efforts so that they can continue doing that is a good way to help. Aside from financial, the next way you can offer support is through like a political legislative lens. So signing petitions that are pushing for more support for pushing the U.S. to provide more support to Ukraine. Writing letters to your politicians to push them to provide more support, because those people are the ones who are pushing and making decisions and deciding what the U.S. is going to offer. So really pushing them to provide more support is a great way to help. Third way to help, which would be more from like an employment perspective. So if you're a business owner and you have an employee who might be of Ukrainian descent or an employee who has family that's directly in Ukraine, really being mindful and empathetic to what the situation that they're in, the predicament that they're in, and working with them, and supporting them so that they know, maybe if it's something like providing them some extra time off to mentally handle what's going on, or providing them some flexibility in their jobs so that they can work around the clock. I mean, it's a 6-7 hour time difference, so maybe they need, they're limited in what times they can communicate with their family, and so if it has to be during a business day,
be flexible.
Allowing them to have that opportunity and stuff. So just so that you're, know that your employees have your support, it can be a really big help.
Yep.
And then the last way to offer help might be through an educational standpoint. So if you're a teacher or a professor, maybe start a general sense, depending on the the children that you're working with, maybe start having a conversation, build it into your curriculum as a part of, it's a current event.
Yeah.
It's really important, and just really help bring some awareness to the children, and maybe to a level that's appropriate for them to understand, and let them have a conversation about this, and talk things out and kind of get their viewpoints on things. And to build on that, though, depending on the children that you're working with and having conversations about this, I think it's also important to really reach out to the parents too, and make them aware of the conversations that are being held or had around this, and letting them know that they can kind of fill in gaps and provide more information directly to their kids, just so that they're aware of that.
My second grader, her teacher reached out to us and said, "Hey, just so you know," this was, I think it was a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks. He said, the conflict in Ukraine came up in our conversation today, and just want to make you aware that this was happening, and I really appreciate that, because then, my daughter Hannah, she was really upset about it, and so we were able to come home and talk to her about it and have a conversation and talk about some of these other things that, again, aren't always addressed so nonchalantly when you just hear about a war happening. So that's a great takeaway there.
Yeah.
So Tony, thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Absolutely.
It is Motivational Monday. So how should we leave our viewers motivated today? What would be something you would to ask of those who are listening and watching today? What would you ask of those to feel motivated to go do today?
That's a really good question. I think I would just ask for you to just be mindful of the situation while you feel like it doesn't really affect you directly. Know that it is affecting a lot of people directly, and being mindful and just showing your support, because the more people see that, it really can just have a positive effect for them to know that other people feel for them, and that they're thought of and cared for and stuff,
It's important to remind people that they matter.
Yeah, because we all matter.
Yeah, we do.
Every human being matters.
Yeah, and especially, and even ones that you don't agree with, or we've talked a lot about, there are Russians who are suffering in this whole thing as well. Misinformation and being lied to, and all those things. And it's like, it's never black and white. It says, well, you're right or you're wrong. Yeah,
you're exactly right. Yeah,
and having compassion for all of those who are involved, and so I really appreciate you sitting down, and I would add to do those things, those practical things that Tony laid out. Have conversation, reach out to politicians, support Ukrainian businesses, being empathetic, and just understanding that this is a complicated situation that didn't happen overnight and is not going to end overnight, and something that's going to need our attention for years to come and our care. So, again, thank you so much, Tony, for sitting down.
Thank you.
And we are so glad you tuned in today. And we love you. We're praying for you, and we'll see you next week. See ya.